Hello and welcome back to Quarterlight, your car brochure channel. Today we're going to look at the Citroen C6. Welcome back, and if you are into car brochures incidentally, please do subscribe. I'm sure there'll be something for you, and of course it's going to help the channel greatly. So today, the Citroen C6, and I think this is actually the newest or most modern car we've actually featured on this channel. We tend to more look at 60s, 70s, 80s cars. Here we're jumping all the way till 2005 when it came out. It was really there as a wannabe replacement for the Citroen XM, and it was supposed to arrive in the year 2000. But like I say, it wasn't until 2005 when we actually got a chance to purchase it. For me, one of the reasons why I featured it is one of those, it's probably the last real modern car that I've really wanted. When I saw it the drawings for it and when it actually came out, it was such a striking design, I really wanted it. And I hadn't had that sort of feeling since I first saw the Citroen C6. The XM for me was one of the few, or probably the only big Citroen I'm not really desperately wanted. I never actually bought one, incidentally. When they were launched, it was way out of my price range, and I did kind of like follow the prices for the first 3 years or so, and they were still a really expensive car. Today, you can pick them up for next to nothing. But anyway, let's look at today's brochure. It's from January 2006 for the Citroen C6. So there we go, the front cover of the Citroen C6, and what a disappointment straight away. It's just a modern black cover, and I suppose that is the problem with these more modern brochures. They go all mean and moody, don't they? This sort of plain black, and you can see all the scrapes and scratches that show up in the light here. But nevertheless, let's open this up and see what this particular brochure has to offer. And the first page is more of the same, pretty dull, nothing too exciting. And the theme continues sadly in this sort of black tone, but it is sort of like in the tradition of Citroen brochures that we look at back in the 60s, this sort of very stylish, very sort of artsy sort of design. Here we're kind of like centering on that famous Citroen chevrons, and it's saying R for refinement. And as we turn into a proper page, we can actually see the first time this very sort of stylish French design that they did for the C6. And I do apologise, I think this particular brochure has never actually been opened, so I don't want to pull it open too far and flatten it down. So unfortunately we're going to get a little bit of a curve as we go through it because it's such an untouched brochure. This particular one, like I say, never been open brochure. But like I say, very stylish, and straight away when I saw this, when I was, back in the 2000s or so, when I first saw these pictures, I thought what a striking looking car it is for the modern times. It was kind of like a car really to go against sort of like big German cars, like, I don't know, the 5 Series BMW and maybe the Audi A6, them sort of big executive cars. But the thing was, it was such a wacky, such an unusual car, it really didn't sell in great numbers. Really, the average person preferred to have a big German car at the end of the day, didn't they, rather than these very sort of stylish French cars. But like I say, I do have a soft spot for Citroen, and I haven't done for a long time until this car came out, and it kind of like invoked some of that traditional classic qualities of Citroen of being just that little bit different. But anyway, let's go through the page and see what we can see. It's a thick brochure, this one, so we're not going to spend too long on each page. The next page is showing this curvy back, and hopefully we'll get a better look at this. Unfortunately it's right in the curve of the page, or the crease of the page, but you can see them really swept back rear tail lights, and also this concaved rear screen, kind of like invoking the Citroen C6, really bringing those sorts of qualities. Surprisingly, It's not a hatchback. They didn't really think of it being, oh, we'll do a practical hatchback. It went back to the days where it's sort of like a fastback type style, where it's just the boot itself that opens. And then we get a couple of little shots of that sort of interesting frameless door, the leather seats, and the sort of Citroen badge on those alloy wheels. That would be a 18-inch alloy wheel used in this particular case. And like I say, them sort of like frameless doors, quite an unusual little touch on a modern car, sort of giving it a bit more of a stylish sort of image, if you will. And then we get a page showing this lovely little image, sort of like, again, a very sort of artsy sort of shot of the C6 going through the countryside. And this sort of very, very striking interior kind of like follows the theme, which is nice to see. A lot of cars do a very striking outside, and you come back in to the car and it's very ordinary. They kind of like kept the theme as being very striking, very different, very French. Straight away in front of the steering wheel, you can't really see any gauges. Of course, it had a heads-up display. Nice to see it had just a small screen at this time, and you could actually move that screen to the different angles to avoid any sunlight. Again, on a modern car, that's kind of like forgot about. And then we've got a like sort of splattergun approach of all these sort of buttons. Personally, I do prefer buttons rather than touchscreen, so I know it's not to everyone's, wouldn't normally like to see all these buttons, but I really don't mind it too much at all. And there you can see that heads-up display in operation. Nothing too exciting for those who are used to modern cars, but you know, this is 2005, so you know, it would have been something quite striking to have on your car. And it gives you a little bit of functionality on that display. Here we have the front end, and I probably would say the front end isn't my favourite side of the C6. I much prefer the side and the rear, but still a very striking car nevertheless. There we go, a quick view at some of the controls there. Obviously the sort of top being the up and down of the hydro-pneumatic suspension, and also an option for sort of sporty, more firmer ride, but they're all soft rides really. You know, a spaceship that rides on air, it was often referred to as. Really a throwback to, dare I say it, proper Citroens. A real nice ride, a very charmingly idiosyncratic sort of car, referred to often as being refreshingly different, a spaceship that rides on air, all little key phrases you could find in press reports at the time. And yes, throughout this it's very dark brochure, it's very sort of like artsy brochure, so just a random shot in the middle there. Engine choices, yeah, a V6 HDI you could have. There was a few different engine choices at launch. I think there was a 3-litre V6, and I think this was a 2.7-litre HDI V6 delivering 208 brake horsepower. The 3-litre V6 petrol, I think, was around about 215 brake horsepower. Later on, I think October 2006, remember this is January 2006, or after this brochure, there was also a 2.2 HDI you could have. And then later still in June 2009, there was actually a 3-litre HDI option. Another quite random big screen. Well, this is kind of like showing the door pockets. They kind of like pull downwards. So you can't actually see the door pockets. It was covered by this sort of fake wood that pulled down, which I think was quite a charming little feature. Fabulous, big, comfortable seats, of course. Pretty dark in there in this dark leather, although there was also a very light interior colour you could get, which I think, well, I personally think was preferential over this very dark trim colour, but no doubt an extremely comfortable car. And again, more evidence of this interior. The brochure kind of like follows this theme of all being dark, 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 unfortunately, which means it's not one of my favourite brochures, I must admit, but kind of this time like dark colours meant executive, didn't they? So I think it's kind of following that theme. Big comfortable rear seats, again in that black leather cover, huge armrest which obviously folds away on those sort of big headrests, and you can just make out that wooden sort of like door pocket that slides down in this picture. Again, another moody shot of the Citroen C6. An artsy look at one of the headlights, an artsy look at the alloy wheels, and an artsy look at that sort of chevron that follows all the way along the bonnet. Another artsy shot of the C6 in the city. Before we get some info finally, so let's zoom in at some of this and let's look at some of the features. So we'll have a look at some of these details. So we've got an active front head restraint with 9 airbags. I seem to remember it even had an airbag that come out for your knees as you drive, so not just the airbag that came out of the steering wheel, but also one that came to protect your knees, which was quite advanced at the time. Then we've got the Xenon dual functional headlamps. It says the Xenon dual functional headlamps on the Citroen C6 use discharge lamp technology for dips and full beam. And it also goes on to telling us about this technology pioneered by Citroen, means that the car directs the beams according to the angle of the steering wheel. This goes all the way back to a long time ago, where the big old Citroens, you turn the steering wheel and the headlamps used to point in which direction your steering wheel was pointing, which I always think was a great idea, and it's surprising it never really caught on. We have, of course, this heads-up display, and then the new normal safety features: ABS, EBD, EBA, and electronic parking brake. We've also got your ESP ASR, so your electronic stability control and your traction control, of course. Your lane departure warning system, which is quite normal on a modern car, but a little bit less unusual at this time. Active suspension, of course, your usual Citroen trait as well. The brochure just ends rather black again. January 2006, and a few awards it's showing on there. Obviously a UK brochure, this one. So there we go, the Citroen C6. Certainly one of my favourite cars of modern times. Sadly, by the time the prices went to being affordable, I kind of moved to North America, and they didn't sell it in North America, so I'm sure I will unfortunately never sit in one. But nevertheless, let me know what you think about the Citroen C6. Was it too wacky? Oh, well, I guess it was too wacky because the sales said it was too wacky, but sometimes it's nice to be different, isn't it? Thank you so much for watching today. Please do like and subscribe, and we'll see you very soon. Take care and goodbye.